Hello and welcome to Pro Trader Strategies Market Commentary for Tuesday, February the 11th. I'm Eric Wilkinson, and yes, you very well may recognize me as the Wolfman from mainstream media, where I've talked about everything from the economic to geopolitical and market analysis. I talk about basically in these webinars the economic data, how that impacts the overall market. Sometimes we talk about the geopolitical and other aspects of the global economy and how that's impacting these markets. Please remember, though, that past performance of any trading system or methodology is not necessarily indicative of future results. All right, with all that out of the way, let's get on with the economic data. Across the pond, mostly Great Britain economic data. So we got preliminary GDP coming in at unchanged. That's right in line with what was expected. They did revise last month's up by a smidge. We also got manufacturing production waning a little bit, coming in at 0.3%, expected to be 0.5. They did revise last month's number up a smidge as well, but not making up for the miss on the headline. Construction output coming in better than expected at 0.4%. It was supposed to be a negative 0.4%, so nice beat there. We also got industrial production waning just a little bit, coming in at 0.1%, expected to be 0.3%, and they revised last month's number up by 0.1% as well there. Preliminary business investment, though, came in at negative 1%, expected to be negative 0.5%, so missing on that one. Now moving back over here to the United States, we got the NFIB, which is the National Federation of Independent Businesses. It's a small business index. Gauges their outlook on the overall economy and the strengths and weaknesses. It came in at 104, expected to be 103.6. It came in at 104.4, expected to be 103. So that's basically remained in positive above 100 anyway since basically 2017. So that's been a pretty strong number. And that's a number I really like to look at because it gauges the small businesses, right? We talked about that. But the small businesses are really the drivers of that velocity of money. So if people are buying at the small businesses, then the overall economy does have a much better tendency to do well. We also got Fed Chair Powell speaking today or testifying. And I watched a little bit of that. He's basically talking about keeping interest rates relatively low, and he really likes the way that the employment picture is looking. So that being said, we also got jobs openings coming in at 6.42 million hires or openings anyway for businesses, expected to be almost 7 million, so slightly lower than expected there. Mortgage delinquencies lower than last month's, coming in at 3.77%. All right, that's about it for the economic data. We do have a couple other Fed governors speaking later today, Quarles and Kashkari. All right, without that, I don't think they're going to say anything any more important than what Powell's been talking about. So, all right, we've got crude oil moving up by almost $1 right now. Yesterday, we settled below that $50 threshold. I've talked about that. I just don't think that that's necessarily sustainable at those levels. So hopefully you got your gas filled up. As crude oil is moving a little bit higher today. We've got gold coming off by about 11 points right now, still up in the 1500s, and right there at around that 1550-ish area. I think it should stay up in and around this area. I don't know if it's going to go above 16 unless we see a real major correction in the markets. So that being said, I think we're not going to see that for a little while because the equities are blasting off today. We've got the bonds coming off by about almost a point, 26 ticks, just about 6 ticks shy of that. Up in those 162 handles, in that 162 handle, it should migrate in and around this 160, at least hold on to a 1.6 handle. So we're seeing that work out right now and just kind of trending sideways. I've talked about this for time and time again, that I expect us to see this market really start to build out a volume node in and around this area right here. We've seen the paradigm shift higher and price being accepted in and around these levels. So that 160 handle, although it lines up with that 100 Fibonacci there that I've got, that is going to act more as a magnet, not necessarily as much of a support and resistance going forward. Just keep that in mind as well. It does kind of line up nicely together. All right, the VIX is coming off. We're still in the teens, but off by about 55 right now, and that's because, like I said, we're seeing the equities move higher. Dow Jones Industrial Average up about 85 points. It was up over 100 earlier this morning, but making a new all-time intraday high here, as you can see with the chart, but getting a little topped out there. But I think that this market is really starting to feel pretty strong right now, as you can see here with the NASDAQ near the highs, just about 9 ticks off. That is an intraday high as well. And with the way the charts are setting up right now, the shorts have got to be on their heels as this market is really starting to blast off. Earnings have done pretty well, aside from Under Armour for the most part. We're seeing pretty good numbers coming out, especially Microsoft and a few of the other ones. We've got NVIDIA coming out in the next day or so. E-mini S&P is up 16, almost 17 points on the day. And as you can see, just about 4.5 ticks shy of the intraday high that we saw created after the open. This economic NFIB small business index really got the market moving higher. Even after we saw overnight inventory get very long, no real attempt to flush those guys out. That's another reason why I'm feeling very bullish in and around these markets. So I am looking to play some of these to the upside. As I added some negative deltas yesterday and a couple of things, I wanted to add some positive deltas to my portfolio today with a couple of trades that I've done that I'll talk about here in a second. But one of the things that I did take off was this Boeing trade. And if you guys remember, I had on the synthetic short in this, and I had on the March was short the 345 calls in there, and then long the 345 puts. I did that as a collection of 10 cents, so I got a 10-cent credit for that when I put that trade on. As you can see right now, that trade would be a loser for the most part, but I talked about that yesterday. I wanted to get out of that as soon as possible. Believe me, I've played this scenario over and over in my head, how I really kind of butchered this trade, to be quite honest. I did end up making a profit on it because I got a $3.15 credit. So all in all, $3.25 credit on this trade. And the thing with this is, you know, I played it over, like I said, time and time again. I should have probably covered those calls when we were down here near or at these lows. I probably could have done much better with that, especially with that move down to 300. I really thought we were going to test 300, so I thought we were getting that little bit of a bounce here, and this correction would have brought us down lower. But as you can see, we got the bit of a bounce as institutional investors started coming in hordes, it seems like. So with that bounce, I mean, like I said, I should have played that so many different ways when it went down there and made that doji at the bottom at 302. Probably should have covered that trade. At least covered my short calls in there, because those weren't going to help me out at all. So, you know, this is, you know, something that I need to reflect on and make sure that I put that in my books as to how I think I could have played that better. So the next time I get into a trade like that, that I definitely reflect on that and make sure I make better decisions, because covering those calls should have probably been a top priority. At least when I started seeing that bounce, I should have started peeling off some of that those calls probably weren't helping me out at all anymore at that point. All right, so with that being said, I took off those short deltas. I did add a couple of other short deltas in Las Vegas Sands, the Sands Casino. So that I do kind of ended up making a wash in my portfolio with the short deltas, taking off the Boeing and adding those other couple. But I added some long deltas here in United Healthcare, which is ticker symbol UNH. And I think that this is going to do rather well. So I went into the March and sold the 260 puts in there and was able to collect $2.77 on that. That puts me well below the value area high here, but you can see price is being accepted up at these levels, so I'm happy with that. I think that we've had a bit of a correction there, and I think that we're off you know, earlier on, it was looking a little bit like it was going to be confirmed with this bottom here that we can see right there that we were going to start moving a little bit higher, seeing a little bit of weakness right now, but I'm comfortable with it at this point. But like I said, Las Vegas Sands added those short deltas yesterday, and so added some long deltas to kind of offset that. With this trade here, I was thinking about looking at Microsoft. I'm going to wait for more of a pullback. I think Microsoft has been doing, Microsoft looks like we're getting a little toppy here. So any type of correction here, we've got super high implied volatility with no economic data, no binary event going on. So if I get a little bit of a correction here, I'm going to be jumping in on the Microsoft train to the upside. So keep your eyes out for that going forward as well. That's all I got for you guys. Thursday's webinar is going to be a great one. We are doing this as we build out a portfolio. You know, something like with United Healthcare, if it goes down there and hits my short puts, I'm going to be happy to take that into my portfolio at those levels. Those are key support and resistance levels. That would be somewhere where I would be looking to buy on a pullback anyway. I talk about all of those rules in and around how to set this stuff up in your portfolio, especially for a long-term trade. And so make sure you go to Pro Trader Strategies and sign up for this course. It's a really good one. If you can't take that, take it easy.